talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Well, why don't you start with introducing yourself?
Hello, I'm Barbara Bryan. I've been in mine, started an intensive in '72. And I've been in Primal ever since. It saved my life, I believe, because I had gotten married at 16. I didn't finish high school. And I had 5 children. And as of this date, I have 34 grandchildren. Some of them are great grandchildren. But Primal has been my guiding passion. I really dedicated my life to it in a great way. I bought a house that became the Primal Center, and now I've sold the house. I'm retiring from it. I'm 85, but I've had a good run, and I still feel very passionate about Primal. I just have kind of run out of energy to do the work. Some of the work is pretty intense. So, and along the way, in order to keep doing that kind of intense work, I started taking trips. And I took at least one trip a year, and sometimes 2 or 3. And it worked just fine for me. I was able to continue working very deeply in Primal for 41 years. And with the trips I've found, I've been around the world. I have visited 7 continents, all 7 continents, including Antarctica, which was awesome. The experience I had, one of the experiences that was very early on, that was part of me developing this passion, was I'd had a dream where in the dream someone was going to kill me, and they said, and they were going to throw me in a furnace. And they said, you can either go now or you can go later. And I chose now, but that was the end of the dream. But when I primaled that fear, and I was just laying there on the mat and trembling, nobody was with me. I was in a group, but I was working alone. And I just trembled and went through this fear thing, and for quite a little while. And then all of a sudden, it was like there was a light bulb that opened up, that went on up there above my head. And I realized that it was my unreal self that was going to die, and my real self was well and healthy. And it was just so exciting to me. I was just in the process of starting a divorce after 30 years of marriage. And it was so exciting to me that I wanted to get up and run around, and I did. I got up and I ran around trying to tell people in the group what had happened, because this was just incredible, you know. And it was so real. And then I went outside, and it was a beautiful day, and I just went outside, and I raised my arms and I started yelling, I got me back. And it was one of those epiphanies. It was incredible. And how could I not love the primal process? It was wonderful, and it continued to be that way. And as a therapist, and I've done a lot of training. I was at 9 different ARCs, which are 40-day training sessions for primal therapists. And so it's been a wonderful life. And my house, I bought a house that was for the Primal Center, and it served me well. We had all kinds of wonderful therapists come and visit from Australia and England and Canada. And it's been a good run. It's been a wonderful run, and I'm very happy, and I'm very grateful for my life. The divorce and that upheaval was probably the worst thing that ever happened to me in my life. And it was also the best thing, because I became who I really was meant to be. Not that I feel I've succeeded in reaching every goal, but I've done okay. I've done a good job, and I feel good about it, and I'm grateful. The universe has been wonderful to me. They gave me all kinds of breaks along the way. so that kept telling me I was on the right path. For instance, I never finished high school, but I got into a program in my 40s, early 40s. I went out of the house and got into this program called Investigation into Identity, because I didn't know who I was. And in the process of that, I met this Gestalt therapist who was experimenting with Primal. And I got the courage to go back from this investigation into identity. I got the courage to go back to school. So I went to a community college. They never asked for my high school diploma. And in 4 years, I got a 2-year associate degree in mental health. And then, because of the work that I was doing, I was grandfathered into a certified social worker. And with that, I could work in the clinic, as long as there was a psychiatrist there. So I did work in several clinics, but I wasn't able to do much primal work. And then I got accepted into a master's program without a BA. And the master's program was an external one. My psychiatrist that I had worked under for a while was the mentor in my area, and he got me in based on my resume, which I had been doing for 4 or 5 years. Every workshop that came along, I was just really working on, and also doing a lot of the primal workshops, and then I went to the first ARC in '77, and I did my master's thesis based on the dreams that I had at that ARC. So I got my master's degree in psychology, and then I got grandfathered from being a certified social worker to being an MSW. So I ended up with limited license psychologist and limited license MSW. And, what else could it be but the universe telling me, you're on the right path, and this, and helping me along the way. And it wasn't like it was easy, any of it, but it was incredible that I was able to do it. I got the breaks. And so I think I was meant to do exactly what I have been doing. I really believe that.
I think somebody might be watching this who primal is just a word to them. So, and you talked about, you got into the primaling, and you followed someone who, you had a mentor with it. But that, again, what is your definition of it? How do you...
Definition of a primal is when you get into a feeling and you get deep enough in it that the feeling takes over. And then your unconscious is able to come forward and bring you a memory or insights or something. Sometimes it just brings forth an image, and then you need to work with the image to find out what the meaning is. I'm reaching a blank. Okay, it's like somebody comes in and they have anger, and I will encourage them to talk to the person they're angry at or whatever, and I will encourage them to let the feeling take over, to not to back off, because they tend, when they start to get angry or any feeling, they tend to feel a little bit and then watch out, back off. So I'm encouraging them to go farther with it, to go deeper, say it louder, whatever. And at some point, if they allow that to happen, at some point the feeling will take over. And I can tell, listening and watching them, that it's taking over. And they can also tell that there's a moment there where they get that feeling, that the feeling is taking over. And that, I explain to them, is what primal is. That's the beginning of it, and that's very encouraging. I never tell them that what they're doing is not primal. I will encourage them with any, and they know the difference too when it starts to take over. So at that point, you're going to be able to work with this person. oh, let me see, was a primal therapist in the beginning years. He's been gone for a long time now. He had 10 definitions of what a primal is. And there were all different kinds of primals, and I really believe that. Some primals are just crying really deeply. And when somebody cries really deeply, I often will tell them to wail, to think of, you know, the wolf on the mountaintop who's wailing at the moon. To think of that and wail, because then they release that pain, that grief and loss from the very depths of their belly. You know, where crying is more the neck and the head. A wail comes from deep inside of your gut, and there's a greater release from it. And that's one kind of primal. And you may not get a lot of images or insights with that kind of primal, but you're really releasing grief in it. And sometimes if you're grieving, like when I lost my husband, I was doing that once every 24 hours, or 48 hours. I'd wail and wail and wail out my pain, and I'd feel better for 24 hours. And then the next 24 hours it would start building again. So going through grief or divorce or the death of someone or a big loss it takes time to work through it. But it's so much better than taking a drink of alcohol or gorging yourself on candy or something. And it feels good when the pain is coming out. That's what's kind of weird. Because you're releasing it, it feels good to do it, even though it's a lot of pain. It's hard to understand until you felt it, I guess. But and then I've had people do laughing primals.
Yeah, I don't think I don't see Sandy do that, and in my experience is limited, laughing primals. Yeah.
Well, it happens spontaneously. It isn't something you can start trying to do. But I was working with one young fellow, and I'd worked with him doing an intensive for a couple of weeks. And the last day, something happened. He just felt so good, and something happened, and he just started laughing, and the room was covered with mats, so he was rolling around on the floor and laughing, and I was laughing with him. It was just so funny. It was a joyous kind of feeling. He had just felt so good about what he'd been doing. And so there's all kinds of primals. Another thing that people do, that most of the techniques that I used with people are things I did that helped get them go deeper, were things that had worked for me in my therapy. And one of the things I used to do was to roll from side to side on the mat. So I would teach all my clients how to do that. And of course, many years later, EMDR came out, and that's part of what it was. You're connecting the two sides of your brain. And that's what the rolling does. And once you start rolling, often what happens is within just minutes, you'll get a feeling. A feeling will come up, or a memory will come up, or an image. And if it's an image, we go with the image. And like one time I was doing that with a client, and the image she came up with was an ice cream cone. And she's given me permission to repeat this. I don't know if she wants it televised or not. But I asked her what kind of ice cream it was, and she said chocolate. I said, does that remind you of anything? And yes, she had a memory when she was in the hospital after her tonsillectomy, and she was maybe 4 years old. And there was a little boy in the room that had a tonsillectomy too, and his parents came in and they brought him ice cream. Her parents did come in and they didn't bring ice cream. And she felt really abandoned and bereft, and that was a very intense feeling for her. And it all came from an ice cream cone. So the image, I teach people to believe the images that fleetingly go by. and grab them and explore them farther. And that's just kind of a standard thing that I do. So, what else?
I don't know what else. Those are good, though.
Yeah, that's something like what you want.
Yeah.
I really didn't think much about this.
No, I don't think anybody, I don't think you can think it out beforehand.
Yeah. And my voice isn't really normal, but so I had surgery on my throat.
Yeah.
And evidently it's still not. It's been very gratifying that the scientific community are discovering in their brain research a lot of things that validate what we've known organically and used for years. And one of the latest things, probably it's been several years now, one of the latest things was when they discovered that the amygdala in the back of the brain is where repressed memories are held. And the way that you open that up and release the repressed memories is with a deep cathartic experience, which is a primal. So that's what we've been doing, and they're validating it, they're researching, and the more the same thing was true with cellular consciousness. Graham Farren came from Australia to Michigan and to the IPA, and he brought cellular consciousness awareness to us. And that's the cells have memory. And he demonstrated that, and we had already been experiencing that in primal, like people experiencing conception and all of that. And so we were really believing that that's true, that there's cellular memory. But now they've proven that cells have memory. So it's like things that we learn by doing are now being proven scientifically, and it's gratifying. Of course, they don't give us credit for it at all, but they won't acknowledge us. But we know that we're on the right track, and we have been for quite a while.
The amygdala, that's an organ that suffers very close to the beginning of Alzheimer's and dementia. And so again, its role in memory must be involved with that.
Yeah, I wonder how that works. Well, I hope it means that if we primal, we don't get Alzheimer's, but I don't know if that's going to be true or not.
You know what I think.
The doctors at that time
had to build an emotional wall.
She had to build a wall to protect herself, to keep from the anxiety. Yeah, and that didn't mean that she didn't show her love or feelings some, but she didn't get anxious as much. Yeah. That was before they had all the pills for anxiety.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you build a wall like that.
Well, and it worked for her.
Yeah.
She lived to 95, and she got.
Did it work for you with her?
Well, it's kind of hard to say because it was just my brother and me, and she favored my brother. But toward the end, my brother couldn't be with her when she got into a nursing home he couldn't stand to see her getting older and ready to die, and so I was there more. And there was a moment when I held her as if she was a baby almost. She was 95. And there was a time when she said, "You are the one."
Wow.
Because I know when I went to the Ark in '77, I worked on the fact that I'd been having this song go through my mind for about a year or so. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, and that was going through my head, and I wasn't registering with it. It didn't register that had some meaning.
Right, in your life.
Yeah, right. And but she was a good woman, but she was kind of a nag.
Yeah.
you know, but she was a very good woman. And
My dad was a great guy. He was a great guy, but I had my resentments that he could not hold me, that he could not be emotional, that he could not talk about my mother because that was an emotional thing.
yeah,
I had my regrets. What can you do with them? You have them, you know. And he was great in other ways.
yeah. Well, you take what's good, try to let go of the bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that good?
Yep.